All right. I'm going to call tonight's meeting to order. Let's see. Oh, roll call, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Wall.
Here.
Mayor Matsumoto Wright.
Here.
Councilmember Murray.
Present.
Councilmember Ryan.
Here.
Councilmember Payne Donovan.
Also here.
Councilmember Sonmore.
Here.
Councilmember Woodard.
Here.
That concludes roll call.
Thank you. So next on the agenda is the public comment. Do we have any public comment?
No one signed in remotely or in person, and any written comments have been distributed to council.
Thank you very much. Next is the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council. Just a few things to mention tonight. First, last week you considered and approved the Memorandum of Understanding with the Blue Bridge Alliance. The next day, we received word from Snohomish County that they are providing our Scout program and our embedded social worker with an additional $7,500. So that brings total to that program a little over $12,000 that our officers can use to help members of the community that have a need, whether it be a car seat or a headlight or something like that. So that was great news. I was very happy to hear that. And the Community Academy that we've talked about for quite a while is getting started. We sent the press release and all the information out today about that. That's going to start on February 26th and run through April 2nd. We already have 5 applicants, so just in one day, so that's great. And we have talked about the tree survey as appropriate with Lori Reed joining us tonight. 270 participants on the tree survey, so that was a really robust response, and we're glad to see that as well. And finally, wanted to highlight for everyone the exhibit in the library for the month of January. The Arts Commission selected our Operation Art to Heal, which is an organization that provides support to our veterans, and that exhibit is running in the library all the entire month of January. So please go check it out. And that's all I have. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions? Councilmember Sonmore?
Can you just verify, I thought I heard you say that Snohomish County itself proper gave the extra money?
I believe it was the Sheriff's Office to the Scout program.
Oh, wonderful. Thank
Yep.
you.
Councilmember Murray?
Thanks, City Manager. Follow-up question from last meeting. We talked about the city looking at next steps as far as tour to Terrace and, sorry, my voice is going, how we proceed from here. Do we have a timeline on when we expect to have an update for that? I know that's something that I've gotten quite a few questions about in the last week.
Yeah. So we are scheduling meetings with several organizations that are interested in helping. We have to have a plan in place by no later than the end of February, maybe into the first week of March, although that would be a little bit tight. But we're working very hard to at least preserve the parade for this year. And then hopefully expanding to there. But we're looking into all the options, and I'll have more details for council and community. As soon as I have them, I will share.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you very much. All right, next on our agenda is a presentation by Waste Management, and we have a whole slew of them tonight. Han Kirkland is the Waste Management Public Sector Manager. Oh, are you going to be doing that?
I was going to do a little introduction, if you don't mind.
All right, go right ahead.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. As you know, I'm your Public Works Director, Gary Shimmick. I want to just take a moment to introduce my dear colleagues with Waste Management that I was speaking today. You'll hear from Han and from Grace and from Stephen. But I just wanted to let you know that currently I am the contract manager for this as well, so I am working directly with all the folks you'll be talking with today. And Han and I meet every 2 weeks. If we don't have anything to talk about, we don't cancel it, but usually there's something to talk about. But then I also want to know, Robin's here, Friedman won't be, I don't know if she'll be speaking tonight, but she and I worked together when I was at Redmond. Redmond had Waste Management as their solid waste contract. So 5 to 7 years experience working with them. So just wanted you to know that, and if you have any questions after this meeting about our contract, just please feel free to call me. And then I'll turn it over to our friends at Waste Management. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Han Kirkland. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for having us here tonight, giving us the opportunity to present our annual report. First and foremost, I would like to sincerely apologize for the mix-up that we had with our mailing with the service guides and calendars. We had sent it to the printer, they did their job, and unfortunately there was a mix-up in the mailing. So as soon as Gary and I knew about it, we talked about it, and I'm probably Carol. Yes. Okay. And we got on the horn with the printer. They reprinted it. It should be in mailboxes by early next week. So with everybody having the correct collection schedule. So again, I sincerely apologize that happened, and hopefully we'll, one thing is we did put it on the website. There is a little notice on the website, and we created a social post for the city to share if they'd like. So with that, I just wanted to say hi. So I am the public sector manager with Waste Management. With me tonight, I've got Stephen, our district manager, and Grace, our public outreach and education coordinator. So a little bit about me. Prior to coming to WM, I worked on the public sector side, worked for the city of Tukwila for 21 years in public works. And Gary and I have been working on the solid waste contracts, so anything solid waste related. I know I've worked with Andrew Applewick in Parks and Rec, coordinating containers for all the city events. I've worked with Floyd in facilities and for a temporary demo job. So you guys have a really great staff here. I love working with everybody in Mountlake Terrace. So moving on from that, while the operations and outreach folks are here, behind us, we also have a team of our customer service, contract compliance, our communications team. We all work together, and they're not always visible, but we're here to make sure that we provide the best service possible for Mountlake Terrace. And operations is at the core of what we do. We are committed to being a people-first company. We achieve success with integrity. Wait, am I there or not? Oh, I'm here. Okay. Our core values are safety, our customers, the environment, inclusion, and diversity. And we take pride in being in the community. Obviously, we provide almost 10,000 in-kind donations to city events. So those are your carts and containers for these events that you put on. So a brief history with WM and Mountlake Terrace. We've been your reliable partner and industry innovator for the past 17 years. We've been here providing recycling, yard waste, and solid waste services to roughly 5,100 residential and commercial customers. We signed a 10-year contract in 22 with two 2-year extensions. And the green trucks you see in the city on Wednesdays are run on compressed natural gas that's fueled with renewable natural gas recovered from our landfills. And so it's kind of a closed loop. So, go ahead. Sorry. So this year, and also in the new contract, residential customers receive 5 extra units instead of the 4 in the old contract. And in addition to that, which I don't know how many people know, we also provide a $20,000 monetary donation to the city in this new contract, along with the in-kind services. But I'm excited to tell you about our expanded customer service options, which I'll talk about more later. And for now, I'd like to turn it over to Stephen to talk more about our operations.
Thank you, Han. Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Stephen Sopchak, and I'm the Senior District Manager at our North Sound District based in Woodinville with Waste Management. I actually was fortunate enough to join the North Sound team in June of 2024. Prior to that, I was the District Manager for our Marysville and Skagit location, and previous to that, I was a part of our business optimization team. I look forward to continuing the partnership that we have with Mountlake Terrace, and am committed to providing excellent service for this city. With our service that we have every Wednesday, we have 13 drivers that are in your city. Those drivers bring 178 years of combined experience for trash collection and recycle and yard waste collection, specifically with waste management. We touch roughly 10,000 cans on a weekly basis during our even and odd weeks that rotate. With that, we are, of course, in January in the inclement weather season. Han will speak to what that looks like from a customer perspective here momentarily, but from an operations perspective, my team and I are constantly monitoring the changing weather conditions, and if we see any impending inclement weather, we will actually go out and scout and survey the areas to ensure that they are safe for us to operate, really wanting to keep our drivers safe and the community safe as well, safety being the core of what we do. Another thing that we have done in 2024 is implemented a smart truck program to continue to push our safety and improve our safety. The smart truck program actually seeks to eliminate in-cab distractions for our drivers, keeping them focused on what is going on around the truck. It has also applied cameras and monitoring systems around the truck so that way we can be made aware of any changing conditions as well. And then with that, I will turn it back over to Han to discuss how customers can connect with waste management.
Thanks, Stephen. I think I've got that. This is a very busy slide. And so I wanted to start first off with our website and all the different ways that customers can get a hold of us or self-serve 24/7. So starting with the website, this is a dedicated Mountlake Terrace website where you can get recycling information, garbage, yard waste, rates, collection schedules. Going counterclockwise, first you'll see the QR code for our app, in which, you know, if you register for the app and get on there, you can find out where manage your account, look at service information, service alerts. You'll get service alerts if there's interruptions, or you can make a payment. One thing that was interesting when I was looking into this, but 76.8% of residential customers in Mountlake Terrace have online accounts, and 46.2% have auto pay, and over 55% of customers opt to do paperless statements, which is great for the environment. So very tech savvy set of customers here. But yeah, and so obviously customers can email us, they can call Monday through Friday. We even have agents available on Saturday. We have the live chat with an agent option, so you can chat with an agent digitally, or you can do the automated virtual assistant, which is a virtual bot that you can get general information, questions answered. And in the middle here, the report, we have this priority request option as well. And that one is near and dear, as I did help develop it. So a little, this is my baby. And once you pop onto that, you'll get in the upper right-hand corner there, customers can fill out their information. They can report any service changes they'd like, a missed pickup, any problems with carts, and on that form further on down that I could get on this busy slide was, there is an option, and as well as this one over here in the right-hand corner, where you can change on that select language from a drop-down menu of many languages. So if English isn't your first language, there's all these options. The PDFs stay in English, but the whole website can change to Spanish, Chinese, whatever you like. And also further on down on this landing page, we also have recycling information in different languages. And so Stephen had talked about inclement weather, and as we're in January heading into February, that's usually when it hits. Everyone thinks it's December, but it's usually January and February. And so after Stephen and his crew do the drive around, if they determine it's not safe to collect, then we activate our inclement weather protocol. So I will let Gary know if service is going to be collected or not by 6 a.m. We get notifications ready to send out to customers along with recovery information. And at the bottom here, you'll see this frequently asked questions and instructions for setting out extras. And so what that is PDFs that you can save to your desktop or print out, because I know in small cities, with my experience, prior experience to WM, people like to call their local officials instead of checking the site. But yeah, if there is a service alert and things and services affected, it's always updated here in that little service alert box. Have them check that, and then there'll be information as to what to do. So from there, I will turn it over to Grace to talk a little bit about our public education.
Great. Thank you so much, Han. As Han mentioned earlier, my name is Grace Fletcher, and I am the Education and Outreach Coordinator for Mountlake Terrace. I've been here since July, and I graduated from Gonzaga in May. Go Zags, Councilmember Ryan. And I'm super excited to share how WM has been active in the Mountlake Terrace community this past year. First and foremost, when we prioritize education, we really want to go at it with WM's best practices for recycling and waste sorting. And what that means is incorporating strategies such as transcreation and community-based social marketing to really ground our work. So transcreation is basically one step above translation. So as Han mentioned, we do have all of our recycling, garbage, and compost guides translated into 8 different languages that all Mountlake Terrace residents can access on our WM Northwest webpage. But we also transcreate each of those guides, which means that we include culturally relevant language and items pictured on the guide so that they're understandable regardless of whatever culture is present in the homes in Mountlake Terrace. We also use community-based social marketing, which is a science-based framework that is really targeted towards measurable, sustainable behavior change. So that really grounds our work when we do outreach and education, as we not only want to educate the community, but we really want to encourage that sustainable behavior change as well. We supported National Night Out this summer, as you can see in the photo in the top left. 2 of our Recycle Corps interns, Jenna and Emma, are pictured at the WM Recycle Right booth with Smokey the Bear. And Jenna and Emma at this event spent all day having really meaningful face-to-face conversations with Mountlake Terrace residents and business owners that stopped by the booth. And oftentimes these face-to-face conversations would lead to our interns distributing recycling guides, garbage guides, compost guides, hazardous waste, whatever that resident needed at the time. This also involved youth coming in and playing our waste sorting game just to familiarize younger children with the different waste streams. And anyone who spun our wheel of waste, as you can see in the bottom left-hand corner of the photo, had the opportunity to win a prize if they were able to successfully identify which bin the item was supposed to be in. Our Recycle Corps internship, at the core of it, is really about delivering these meaningful face-to-face conversations and reaching as many Mountlake Terrace residents as we possibly can. I'm just one person, but with our 9 interns that we had over the summer, we were able to reach a lot more residents and have that one-on-one connection. The internship is also really about professional development. These are college-age students that we really want to encourage them going into careers in sustainability and waste. I was actually a Recycle Corps intern 2 summers ago, so I can really speak to the effectiveness of the program and getting us involved in professional development and careers in sustainability as a whole. I also worked with property manager Ben Beener of Taleswood Apartments, that's in southeast Mountlake Terrace. Mr. Beener was super proactive and really easy to work with. He actually gathered those compost buckets you can see in the photo from his property management association. And then I came in with our compost guides and just delivered education to tenants who stopped by our kind of lobby education event. Taleswood Apartments alone actually has around 512 units just on its own property. So by providing outreach to this multifamily property, we were able to reach a really large amount of the Mountlake Terrace community. One of our goals is to really educate the residents of Mountlake Terrace on how to recycle right so that they can avoid contamination charges in the future. So as per our contract, we work a lot with multifamily properties because multifamily properties can often be some of the most challenging when it comes to getting everyone under the same property to recycle the same way or the right way. And so that's kind of why we also had our WM interns call all 50 multifamily properties in Mountlake Terrace, also per contract requirements, just so we can encourage those property managers to pass that education along to their tenants and just make sure that everyone's on the same page when it comes to what goes where. In the summer, we also contacted all 50 multifamily customers, which I mentioned, which we got really great momentum in 2024, and we can't wait to go forward in 2025 with all this great outreach that we were able to complete this last year. So the Cascade Recycling Center is a really essential piece of our whole recycling system. It was rebuilt in 2023 to increase capacity, improve commodity recovery, and maximize material values and material quality for the things that we're selling off to our manufacturers who actually physically break down the material and physically make it into something new. So in 2023, when it was rebuilt, we really wanted to incorporate technology that improved the efficiency of the facility and how quickly we were able to move through materials. So we were getting more items actually recycled and sent off to our manufacturers. And one of the pieces of technology that really helps us with this is called our optical sorters. These are essentially just the quickest and most efficient machines that can sort out items as quickly as possible. They can sort up to 16 items per second, which is just 600 per minute. So they're extremely fast, extremely efficient. In our old facility, we only had one of these machines, and now we have 15. So we're really able to move through material a lot faster. We process material from about 250,000 households across Western Washington. We take in about 50 tons of commercial material and 520 tons of residential material every single day. But we do have the capacity to process up to 650 tons. So we're able to move through quite a bit of material. We do give community tours of the CRC every quarter, but we would absolutely love to host a private tour for any and all council members who would like to join and any Mountlake Terrace city staff. I'm the one who actually gives the tours. It's one of my favorite parts of the job. So feel free to contact me or Han, and we would love to get a date and time on the calendar for all of you to come out and see Mountlake Terrace recycling get sorted firsthand.
Great, thanks, Grace. And so looking forward to this year, Washington's organics management law ramps up requiring businesses who may generate more than 4 yards of organics divert to compost versus putting it in the trash. Last year it was 8 yards. So those are your big like hospitals, cafeterias, food waste generators, grocery stores. So this year it's 4 yards. So it could possibly be restaurants. And so if you have any businesses that have any questions or would like any help in getting that set up, Grace and I are more than happy to help with that. And then of course in July, we're happy to support Independence Day celebration toward a terrace, hopefully, and in August, National Night Out again. And so, and if you have any other community events you'd like to see us at or have any suggestions, we're always looking to be out in the community. So let us know. And with that, thank you again for the privilege of being your service provider. And we're happy to take any questions.
Anyone have any questions? Councilmember Salmo? Who had their hand up first?
Sorry, it's just a quick of the draw. After all these years, it just automatically goes up. Sorry, I'll start with Resolution 864. So that's when we had the 2-year extension and into 2024. So when's the contract up and when was it renewed?
It was renewed in 2022 and it's up in 2032. It's a 10-year contract, and then there's an option for 2-year extensions, so possibly another 4 years.
Can you just remind me when it was renewed? Was it in 2024? Because we had 2 years. I just was looking at the resolution. So we had it up, we extended it in 2024 to 2022 with a 2-year extension would be 2024, and then you're saying now it's 2032. When was it?
Robin, do you recall if it was renegotiated in 2022? I believe it was renegotiated in 2022, and then it was for another 10 years.
Okay, that's probably why I couldn't find it. And so with that, I think it was 2022, and I could picture her sitting here, but I can't remember her name.
Maybe Marcy?
Long dark hair?
Yeah.
Yes. And, yeah, very nice. And she was adamant about getting the surveys out there and would contact us quite a bit. What happened to that, or what data was collected from Mountlake Terrace on the surveys? And most of it was around recycling, because there was going to start being the extra charge and re-educating people on what can be recycled. I know I have a mother who is tinfoil, paper, towels, napkins, all recycle, and just educating, people over there. Now I need to be re-educated again about recycling and what can go in and what can't, and what do I look for on the plastic bottom of the, whatever those clamshells you call them are. So what happened to the survey results, and how has Mountlake Terrace been doing on recycling? Because I know at the time we were looking at renewing the contract, it was going to be a $25 charge at the time if people were putting the wrong items into recycling. So that's kind of where I'm getting at, is what were the survey results? Were they implemented? Is Mountlake Terrace doing better? And when is that, has the $25 charge already gone in? Because I know the charge for having your lid up has already gone in, because we've heard all about that, but moreover about the recycling.
This new contract does include contamination fees if we see items in the carts. Sorry, I keep forgetting about the microphone. It's so lovely to have just this intimate thing, because I'm so used to being behind the podium. But yeah, there is a contamination fees in this contract when people put in the wrong items. And so since I did not oversee the contract during the time of the survey, I will look into that and get those results back to you. But Grace can talk more in regards to the acceptables list and what people should and shouldn't put in recycling.
I did bring with me some recycling guides specific to Mountlake Terrace, so it has it's super clear. It has clear language, photos of examples of things that are recyclable, so I can leave a stack here today, and that just has, really clear instructions. It's also the same recycling guide that's available on WM Northwest. So people can either have physical or digital copies. I can provide the physical to any multifamily properties, commercial businesses that may need them. But there are digital copies of the accepted recyclables list on the WMNorthwest.com.
And, there's always pros to con to that. You have a 13-year-old kid who just throws in whatever, or an 8-year-old. So is there a lot of fees for that $25 being charged to residents? Because we're always looking at ways to save our residents money. And sometimes things just happen. And so educating is very important too, but, remembering what you think you remember and doing it is another thing. And so that's where I'm trying to get at. How much fees are you collecting from Mountlake Terrace residents?
I am not aware of the number of fees. Is that something that you know?
Yeah, that's something I can pull and get for you. Definitely, it's not meant to be punitive. It's more just to say, trying to change the behavior and getting the contamination out of the waste stream. And so I can get that information to you as well.
And a lot of Pierce County is no longer doing glass. And so are you going to be doing that at some point, of not recycling glass?
For now, our partners are still accepting the glass. And I know that we had a contract with them that we're still collecting it. I know that this is kind of a region-wide problem. King County's working really hard to find a solution. And so for right now, though, there's been no change.
Great, thank you. And thank you for coming here.
Yeah.
Just to jump on the glass bandwagon, where does glass collected go?
Right now, SMI, Strategic Materials, is still taking our glass. So we collect it curbside and we give it to them, and they're still accepting it.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, the three of you, for being here, all of you for being here tonight. Appreciate it. Appreciate hearing the update, and appreciate in particular all of the different community support that you provide, as well as obviously the services. A couple of questions, I guess, to first kind of add on to what Councilmember Sonmore was asking about. It would be very helpful to understand what overage charges our residents are seeing, both in terms of contamination, but also in terms of as we've been more, conscious about keeping lids closed, and, we've seen more charges for that with the implementation of your new technology solutions. We definitely have heard lots of feedback from our community, as you could imagine. So for me, it would be helpful to understand what those charges look like before the technology went into effect, like, and then what they've looked like since, with the hope that as we're doing all of this education, right, that folks are not seeing those charges continue, that it isn't punitive, right? That it is something
Yeah.
that they are learning, what they are better understanding, what the process is, so that they aren't frustrated and aren't,
Right.
incurring all of these charges. But I am curious about options for other education, because I love I've got a copy of what you put in each, the garbage and the recycling and the compost at home, and there's something to be said about actually having somebody walk you through that. And I actually think even when we went through the contract renewal process, we were, we were educated as a council. And I think, Councilmember Sommer talked about clamshell packages, for instance, and that's one that I think a lot of folks don't know that that's not those aren't recyclable, right? I didn't until I looked at alternative options for, getting rid of waste in my house. And I was like, oh, they collect those? Does that mean I can't put them in my recycling? And so I do think it would be wonderful if we could figure out a way, maybe as a city, to host an opportunity for you to come in and physically show people not only what is, what should go where, but also talk about the importance of why. I think that's another piece. I think, a lot of people still envision that our recycling goes somewhere and it's washed and it's, I don't think people really understand oftentimes what the process looks like and what the implications are of what they put in the recycling, right? And I think the default oftentimes is the recycling. And, while we should aim to recycle as much as we can, also that education is helpful for better understanding what really does need to go in the garbage, so we continue to have these recycling services at an affordable rate for our community. So I'd love to see that. And then I guess kind of an additional education would be nice with that. You mentioned the compost requirements. We have a Chamber of Commerce here in Mountlake Terrace, and it would be really nice to connect you with them and help them work with you to ensure that they are connecting with our businesses that might be impacted here locally. They would be a really good resource. So if we haven't connected you with them yet, let's make sure that we do that so that they can help spread the word, because that is, I was going to say, I would imagine that's a significant change for some of those businesses. And so definitely want to support them as they're navigating that.
Yes, for sure. Grace and I will be doing a presentation for the Snow Valley, Snoqualmie area Chamber of Commerce. So we're more than happy to come in and do a sustainable presentation. And as far as the wish cycling goes, that's what they call, I'm hoping this is wish that it's, recyclable. But yes, definitely, in other cities, we've done presentations or tabling at employee benefits fairs. So if you guys have an employee appreciation day, if you want more education for the city employees, we're more than happy to do that. In other cities, we work with school districts to kind of get it, at the ground level, because once you get the kids to do it, then they get their parents to do it. So yes, any suggestions, send our way. More than happy to help.
I love to hear that. Are you already working with the Edmond School District, or is that something we know? Okay, well then we should definitely make sure we make those introductions as well. I think that's a great idea. I think you are absolutely right. The children are oftentimes the advocates of making change that maybe takes a little bit of extra effort, but is good for all of us. So, and then I did have I guess, understanding kind of the mix up with schedules, just because I think that's been a frustration for our residents, and it's particularly a frustration because it seems to be an annual occurrence. It is not the first time that has happened. Yeah. My guess, and I could be wrong, but we divide up by north and south of 228th, and you guys are in King County, where you think of going north as getting bigger in numbers, and we're in Snohomish County, so it's flipped. And so I assume that's probably why it's happened. I mean, I'm guessing. I'm trying to give benefit of the doubt, but it seems to, I guess, how is that not going to happen next year? Because people do get really frustrated.
Yes, and now that I have eyes on it, I will make sure our collateral manager, he had everything printed, and, it was set on our side, printed, it was the mailing vendor. So it's something that's on my radar to make sure that this does not happen again.
Do folks have the option, since we're getting it to them essentially 2 weeks past when the cycle has come out, do they have the option to put out double yard waste and double recycling the next 2 weeks as they have those pickups, given that some folks put out the incorrect one and missed pickup over the course of the last 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Awesome. I think they will be very happy to hear that, so I appreciate it and appreciate, all of the work that you guys do and for being here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Councilmember Ryan?
Thank you, Mayor. Go Zags. Yeah, that's it. I'll see you tomorrow.
Fine with me.
Just, this might seem nitpicking, but for our consumers here, our citizens, how far does the lid have to go up to trigger an extra fee for either the garbage or the recyclable or the yard waste? Is there a, it reaches 4.5 inches, or is it when they have it giant or something?
It says 6 inches.
6 inches?
Yes, is what the
Okay.
contract says.
Yeah, because I'm trying to help my neighbors, because sometimes they'll have like a Christmas tree, 6 feet sticking out of it. They don't quite get it. But anyway, and then I know a lot of citizens think, until they get their bill, that extra bags of either garbage without the certificate for, you get 5 free bags. If you have an extra bag of garbage, or you have an extra bag of not recyclables, but yard waste. Because I think the yard waste, is it still $3 a bag? Those paper bags that go, you get them at, yeah, they charge extra for that. And then what's the extra fee for a trash bag on top of the trash container? $9.
$9.44.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because a lot of people don't know that. And
And the rates also are on the website. If you go under to WM Northwest /Mountlake Terrace, there's a section that says rates, and it'll give all the extras are listed on there as well.
well, I know I'm guilty too, that we get these notices from you in the mail, but we don't read them. And then, yeah, we look at them and put them on the refrigerator, but we don't read them sometimes until it's too late. I'm just being honest. I mean, this is just human nature. And then go on the website. I think they'd rather go to YouTube and put a song on than go to Waste Management site. So, I mean, this is, sometimes they don't, do that. But
Come on, it's so fascinating. Garbages.
yeah, it's just, well, maybe it's because I'm older now and I'm retired. I don't like to read things too much. No, but realistically, though, a lot of people, when I'm running for council or things like that, it goes in their mailbox and they just throw it away. And no one knows I'm running. And sometimes that's a good thing. But people have odd habits of not reading, throwing things away, or reading things they don't need to read. But I just wanted to throw that out because I guess I'm getting old. And I see a lot of weird behaviors in my neighborhood. But I really appreciate Waste Management. I like how your company responds to when all the people need something, a new cart or things like that. And I like how professional the organization is in that I've never seen a dirty truck. They're always washed. That's very important. I was in the delivery business for 3 years, overnight express, and I had to wash my own car. But anyway, van. But it's important. It's public perception and that. So I think Waste Management done a great job. Really appreciate the help they've done, and with like Tour de Terrace and providing waste bins. And some years they had hired children from the high school to drive golf carts, pick up the trash, and at no cost, except they paid the kids. I think that's really nice. And just been a really good ambassador for the city. And so thank you very much. And I hope I was funny.
Councilmember Payne Donovan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's always a tough act to follow the Rick Bryan Variety Hour, but thanks for being here. And I think you hear from all of us in our own special ways that we are hearing a lot of frustration from residents, and I think it's picked up recently, and you're probably doing compliance a lot better. As the alum of a neighboring city, a large city to the south, public utility, once upon a time, I really do appreciate the fact that you're working towards getting clean materials to market and providing safe vehicles and good expectations to protect your workers, your drivers who are out there doing real heavy, dangerous work. And so I just wanted to put a fine point on that. I think you've sort of caught our drift and the things that we're trying to sort of pass along from what we're hearing from our constituents. And I think most of my questions that I jotted down over the course of your presentation are pretty well covered, but I've got two, I think, sort of threads I want to tug on. One is to do, and I think, Grace, you talked a lot about multifamily unit building outreach, but I'm curious, especially as Mountlake Terrace builds more densely in in this zone in particular, but across the city, we just updated our comprehensive plan, and we have our own light rail station. We've got one neighboring, and we'll be building more densely we've planned to build more densely over the next 20 years. How are you and staff working on collection buildings that allow for efficient collection and good quality of life, sort of in apartment or condo buildings, and it's not just the 6-story buildings that we're likely to see around the light rail station, but townhouses and other sort of more dense housing options there. So that's one question, and then actually I'll stop there and let you take a hack at that.
Well, we have worked with building departments in other cities. Oftentimes, we get developers asking us to review plans to ensure that we have, they have the proper turning radius enclosures. And so definitely it would fall first under Mountlake Terrace's ordinances and rules for building. And then, Stephen and his team are great about reviewing plans from developers. And so it's just a matter of making sure that we get a review before things are built, and then, because we've had that happen too, where after the fact, it's like, how are we going to get a garbage truck through here? But yeah, definitely for those transit-oriented developments, more than happy to work with the city if they need any assistance from developers to make sure that our trucks can safely collect.
Okay, great. And I guess along with that, just for the record, it's even, our entire floors being built well, or it's our plans being laid as buildings are being constructed, so that a floor with over a dozen units gets their kitchen scraps efficiently down the hall through the elevator, out back to the where what you get where I'm going, just making sure that quality of life in these multifamily buildings while conveying materials is done safely and doesn't lead to bad outcomes for our future residents. I think that's where I'm going, and I'd encourage you and staff to think about that for future interaction, since we've got a long relationship with you and a long contract ahead of us.
Yeah, for sure. And that is one of the things that Gary and I have talked about in regards to even city facilities, getting green waste started here. But like I was telling Gary, a lot of the times it's first off the public education to ensure that we're talking to the facility staff, property managers, to ensure that they understand how to do it correctly so that it doesn't impact residents' life or, you know, you get trash thrown into a compost bin and contaminating it, so.
Yeah, just to extend on that, we have been talking about that for cities facilities, and just experience that I had with Redmond and Issaquah, but both of them very, very progressive and high rate of composting and recycling. And that's what Mohan and I were talking about. We want to get high numbers, but we want to do it the right way, right? And it's that education, making sure we're doing it right first and explaining, you know, the problems if you don't, because a lot of people don't understand that if you just aren't serious about it, you're wrecking it for everybody, right? So I think we're a commitment for both of us to do that. And then just back to the development review too, I've been reading, in preparation for this, reading the contract backwards and forwards, and there's quite a bit of language in there about development review, that they really are our partners in that, and that's something Christy Osborne and I will work on when that's needed. And again, something I have a lot of experience on with Redmond, who their town center very much like we're going to have. That is a serious issue, right, of how trucks get in and out. So we need to get ahead of that, not behind it. So, thank you.
Great, appreciate that. And then I'll cut to my next question. I appreciated the learning about the Cascade MRF and like all that all that extra capacity there. I'd encourage everybody to take a tour. They're really cool. But along the lines of the of metrics and this theme of sort of understanding our performance, and you know, since you are doing more compliance and residents are seeing, or at least anecdotally, we're hearing about more of these compliance fines or fees. It would be helpful to hear about sort of, you know, in terms of, you know, especially recyclability or recycling outcomes, like, you know, what, you know, like glass, or like, you know, PET or other, you know, other materials, like, you know, is there a snapshot that you can provide us or our residents about where those are going? I know that it's a really complex global sort of network in terms of, you know, the contracts that you have selling materials all over the place, and shopping those around and finding customers and making sure that our aim of having recycling work and not just be this sort of shining idea up there is sort of being executed, or that we have a better sense for that, so that we can help Grace and the interns do their job better, or, you know, build that sort of understanding and trust that things are being recycled.
And usually we do have a diversion slide in here, but the numbers aren't finalized for December, so I will follow up with an email to all of you as to what the diversion rate was for Mountlake Terrace in 2024. Throw in some numbers of what it looked like in 23 and how you guys are doing. The fact that you embed yard waste with your garbage service is great, because a lot of other cities, it's by subscription. So just having it as part of garbage service really puts you a little bit that much more in terms of diverting waste to the landfill. So I will get that to you as soon as I get those numbers out, because I was like, oh, it's just that kind of, it's the 9th, so it's still early on in the month for him to do all his reporting, but I will definitely get those slides to you and let you know how you're doing.
Yeah, and I'll just get off my apple crate here in a second, but, you know, I think there is a real sort of struggle with like public trust here. That you can, you know, open up Netflix and watch, you know, sort of compelling pop documentaries about the problems with recycling and bad outcomes actually from our attempts at shipping materials all over the globe. So want to continue this partnership in sort of ensuring our residents that this thing's sort of doing what we intend it to do.
Yes, and once you all go tour the Cascade Recycling Center, you will see just what an enormous operation it is. You know, I always joke with other cities about this, about how people say, well, they're not really recycling. And then you go to a MRF and you're like, oh my gosh, we don't do all this for show. You know, I mean, it's a lot of work. I believe all of our curbside plastic that we collect stay in North America. And we have, since China Sword happened in 2018, more paper mills have been built. And so we're trying to send the paper mostly stateside, but yeah, it just all of that material and the demand and all that is just whatever we can, there has to be a demand for it, right? So it's like that balance. So yeah, just, yeah. Mark your calendars. We would love to host you at the Cascade Recycling Center so you can see the work that we do in firsthand. We also have virtual tours, so if you can't make it, you know, log on. It's a great, it is.
Yeah, it's loud in there.
Councilmember Woodard?
Thank you, Mayor. Who knew we could have like 50 minutes of trash talk? So I'm hoping you can help us. I think I get this question a lot, and I imagine the others do as well, because we are stewards of the evergreens. So although we have in the contract, if we have a, you know, major event, we'll get a dumpster out here, you can bring things. Well, let me just tell you, you have localized catastrophes all the time when you have these evergreens on your property. So when they come down, you have several options, but I want to hear what you would suggest is the best option for removing that, because I will just say one family can only have so much firewood. But how do you get that off your property through a system you're already paying for without it being potentially 9 months of a drip campaign, because you have a weight limit too, right? And these evergreens are very heavy, the weight when they drop a branch. So I would love to just hear Waste Management's perspective so that we can then tell our neighbors what they can option-wise do with the property, or excuse me, the debris on their property.
Yeah, I can take this one. So being relatively new to North Sound's operation, I'm not entirely sure what we've done in the past. I can just speak to what we've done with the bomb cyclone that hit recently. We partnered with a lot of our cities and brought roll-off industrial containers, 30-yard open tops, to different designated areas within the city. So that way residents could bring some of that chopped up material or even unchopped material to those collection sites. So that way we could haul it away for them.
And so I appreciate that, but what I'm suggesting is you have very localized bomb cyclones on your own property, and now it's just your personal problem. But again, I'm paying for a service that's going up and down my street. That technically, that's material I would think could go in there. What are the options there, if any, for someone?
You know, that might be something that I can get with my team with and come back with a solution.
Okay.
Well, I'd just like to jump in. I think that our operations team can surely explore this further, but if the service that we provide, there's one rate that the ratepayer pays, and that rate encompasses every other week yard waste collection or compost in a 96-gallon container. And in the contract, as well as the website, it goes into detail what actually can go into the cart. And there's also a 64 and 96-gallon recycling container that gets picked up every other week. That's the service in the contract. That's the service that residents pay for. We're not a kind of service. We're not a lawn service company. So our trucks, our carts, you know, that we just can't collect, you know, evergreens that have fallen on, you know, trees. We do in some cities per contract collect Christmas trees, but here again, you know, they have to fit in the 96-gallon or they have to be cut to a certain size next to the yard waste cart. So I have to be honest, I think what you're asking specifically is probably not a service that we provide.
And I'm comfortable with that. I appreciate hearing you say that. I appreciate the candor. And if it's a private opportunity, if you will, private industry, then so be it. But I guess that's just it. What the approach is now is to leave it and hope nobody says anything.
right? And then maybe eventually somebody's neighbor says, oh, I'm going to call it in, and now we got our code compliance process. And it's just like, really, it comes down to, how do we get that off your property? You don't want it. It fell naturally. It wasn't a bomb cyclone, but how do we get that out there? Because again, I know there's a weight limit, and these things are very heavy, and people are just not as patient as they used to be. We're just, yes, every other week, just put a little bit more in, and it will be gone in a year's time, versus you not doing anything for a year, right? Or whatever the time is. I mean, you're not doing anything now. That's not very helpful. Because then that goes to the rodent problem, which goes to the chicken problem, which, sorry, I'm trying to be Rick now, but I'm teasing you a little bit, brother. But nonetheless, just saying, I appreciate, the answer is private company, and I will pass that on to my neighbors. Absolutely.
Well, and I think Councilor Woodard's point is it's exacerbated, because I hear the same thing. And the tipping floor at the waste transfer center is not accepting, woody debris or yard waste there any longer. So I think that adds to the frustration that there aren't options. So I think it's I don't know if you can tack that onto your education campaign, but that's a common one, yeah.
It's normal every day. You mow your lawn, you put it in the yard waste cart,
I
Like
love
your
my
compost,
giants. I'm just saying, not everybody appreciates being a steward of an evergreen, and they're beautifully everywhere. But when they come down, people get a little kind of like, wait a minute, what am I paying for? And I just want to have an answer. We have a limit, and that seems reasonable. Again, these can be very heavy branches. There is a whole industry out there that does drive around tree services, so to your point, yeah. But again, I wanted to be able to say, I now asked that question to Waste Management. They gave a very candid, genuine answer.
I'm glad I could be of service.
I appreciate it.
Councilmember Sonmore?
I just wanted to follow up with a few more questions. Are you still offering the $1 if our citizens register online and you donate it? And I was wondering, who do you donate it to, and do you still do that?
Back into the contract. I think not. I think that was for a certain period of time. But Han will get back to you. I would hate to say something that we're not.
You don't have it. That one you don't. That's okay. In the contract, though, I should have known it. We looked at it October 13th of 2022. It went into effect November 8th of 2022, and it will stay in effect till November 8th of 2023. So sometimes it's nice to have follow-up, but a lot of times I don't want you to go to the extra work to do some of that. But what Aaron and I were talking about of looking about how much our citizens are paying for the extra fees, we're real curious about that, because we want to make sure our residents aren't paying more than they have to, and they're very educated, because as council people, that's what we hear the most complaints about right now. And then, of course, Steve hears other complaints too, so we all hear a little bit of something. And then also in that contract, we talked about populations over 25,000 people. You'd have to do organics, and it starts in, I think, January of 2027. What is that?
I believe that is part of the organics management law, and I believe when it gets to that stage of 2027 that we have to provide the service, which Mountlake Terrace would be compliant. Because if you sign up and you are a mandatory trash city, so as long as you sign up for trash, we collect that curbside. So the law started with cities drafting ordinances for procuring compost when you can in public projects. And then the next year it went to anyone who generates more than 8 yards of compost. So like I was saying, the grocery stores, which a lot of them do have a bin that's for like their vegetables, and this year it's 4 yards. So it just gets kind of more restrictive as the time goes. And then by, I believe it was 27, everybody should, have compost offered curbside. So you're there.
This is a piece of state legislation.
Yeah, I saw that, and it would reduce, right, it's mandatory.
The overall goal is to try to get any kind of food waste out of the landfill.
Oh, okay, because I was wondering, what is organics, and do we have compost, and you save $8, but, what does that really mean, and how much is a yard, and how much am I going to produce? So, I guess we'll get to that.
So the overall goal is to divert all food waste from your garbage cart. And the state legislation every year becomes more restrictive and more focused on different entities, whether it's apartment complexes or residents or people. So it's going to be quite challenging for cities. It's going to be a dramatic shift for lots of different businesses and commercial properties and residents. And we are the service provider. We're happy to address questions and support city staff. But it's a piece of state legislation that we will just be implementing as your service provider.
Interesting, thank you.
If I could, if we have comments, if we could please use the microphone, not just for us in here, but it's for the recording and so people at home can hear. Thanks.
And then my next question, we're offering, it's free garbage for certain income levels until April 30th of 2025. I was just wondering, when we offer that, it's this program here, is that part of the $20,000 in-kind? No, okay. I see a shaking of the head. So residents still can apply for utility billing discount and free garbage program. The discount went from May 1st of 2024 through April 30th of 2025. And oops, I get it back up here. I just want to make sure it's put out there because I know there's a lot of people in need. If you're a 1 to 2 person household under 38,000, it looks like you can either get a 30% discount on utility billings or free garbage service for all residents that live in Mountlake Terrace who fall under a limited income.
Right, Gary Shimmick again. Great question. That's part of what we call our administrative fee. So it actually is something part of our, when we come up with agreement, and different cities use the administration fee for different purposes. And we have to go look back at the contract, but I believe there are 3 things that we use it for, are able to use it for, and one of them is the low income. So that's where that pot of money is available for.
And will it completely end in 2025, or will it be reassessed and hopefully the income levels will increase?
I'll have to get back to you on that, but I think the way the contract was written, it's for the full time of the contract that can be done. But I'll look back on that.
With the income level?
Right. Because again, what we designate in the contract is what the administrative fee can be used for, but I did not read that there was a time limit to that, but I could be wrong, so I have to look again.
Oh, good. And then I just want to end on a really positive note. You know, sometimes it's those very, very little things that you don't think about and you're doing your job, but just if you can bring back to the drivers how thankful we are for them. One day my garbage tipped over when he was trying to bring it up, and I go running out there to help, and he's like, no, let me do it. And I'm like, really? You know, I had a friend that worked for you, and he said you're on a time limit and you have to do it on a certain, pace and blah, blah, blah. And every time I see that, the drivers are always like, no, I'll take care of it. And I'm like, really? I'm right here. And the other thing is I have an elderly neighbor, and we were bringing in and out her garbage can, and I guess one of her relatives called your company, and now the driver brings down and up her. And I cannot believe that. They do it every single time. And this good feedback is the drivers that you have. It's kind of like the receptionist, you call it the doctor's office, and if they're rude, it's like, really? You kind of blame the whole organization, but the drivers really present themselves well, and it's a tough job. So I just wanted to end on that.
Thank you for that.
Okay. All right. So Councilmember Ryan?
Thank you, Mayor. I had a couple more. Getting back to some other council members' questions, as far as where our the recycle materials and yard waste goes, isn't there on your website, you have a presentation that shows recycling or where the composting goes? Like, it used to go to Smith Island, the yard waste in Everett.
No, there's nothing on our website that shows the life cycle of
okay.
yard waste, but we used to have a video that did show our Cascade Recycling Center.
Yeah.
But I did want to just address, I don't know if I'm maybe addressing a couple of things that you wanted to talk about, but our priority with recycling is to ensure that the products we collect are actually getting recycled. And the purpose behind the contamination fee is just that. It's so that we all recycle better, and we're more than willing to do more education and be accessible to our customers. But when we see contamination in carts, it ends up going to the landfill because we sort it out. And if it gets into the bales, it ends up being shipped to wherever that new life is going to be created with those materials. So then somebody else has to deal with the contamination, and it becomes garbage for them too. We're working very hard to keep materials in North America. And one of the primary reasons that we instituted the contamination charge is because we don't want to be exporting our material to another country and having them have to deal with our garbage. So we're trying to get the cleanest material possible. And I'm quite proud to say that we have not had materials turned back from contamination when it goes into other countries. We strive to have the cleanest bales possible. And that's why we've asked customers to join us in this partnership of reducing contamination. And if you tend to get a phone call from a constituent who really is struggling with the contamination charge, we encourage you to reach out to us. We want to partner with them. It's not about the $28. It's about looking at the photograph and being able to say, you know what, there was a number of plastic bags in your cart. Plastic bags don't belong in the cart. And sometimes we'll say, oh my God, my kid comes home from, the grocery store and throws their lunch that was in the plastic bag. Oh, I'll just tell him or her not to do it anymore. That's really the outcome we're seeking. So I encourage you, when you have a customer who's frustrated by the charge, to email us or to call us. That's what we're here for. And I have provided Jennifer with our email addresses. And then in terms of extras, I just kind of want to mention that too, because I do think that customers tend to be frustrated. But they're paying one rate, right? It's $38, and they're getting 3 carts. One rate, 3 carts, and they have an opportunity to fill each one of those carts. And when one cart overflows, I think most people don't understand that the lid is part of the cart. And when the lid is open, there's a lot of opportunity for materials to fly away, to tip the cart, and I think you spoke about trees. The only way for us to get customers to kind of get in the habit of knowing that the lid is part of the cart is to have this extras fee. Because sometimes people want to put everything possible into one cart thinking they're being helpful, when in fact the lid is open, materials flying, it becomes too heavy for the driver to be able to navigate, and here we are stuck with, what do we do? So there is a way to close the lid, and then on those rare occasions when you do really have extras, there's a small extras charge, and there's also information on the website on how to prepare your extras appropriately. But here again, we want to be a partner. So if you find that you're getting a constituent that's just really frustrated or upset, this is a great opportunity for you to email one of us, and we will contact the customer and talk them through why they got the charge, how they could avoid a charge. Because that's really what we're trying to get across. We really want to be of service to your constituents and to our residents and our customers. So I know you have a very hard job. I know you get some negative feedback about some of those charges, and we would like to navigate that with you. So please don't hesitate to use us as a resource on those kind of sticky issues.
Great, thank you. One more.
Okay.
As far as then the yard waste goes, I know that you have to have, if you have limbs that fall off your tree, you got to cut them 24 inches or no more than 3 feet, and they can go in the bin. And I had a 100-foot, this is a story for you. I had a 100-foot pine, white pine in my yard, and we had a real heavy 3-foot snow. And I was in my house and I heard this, and I look out, and the whole left side of the tree came down and went boom, and snow was everywhere. It was like a bomb. Anyway, I followed protocol, and I cut the limbs up in 24-inch bin pieces for the yard waste, and it only took me a year to get rid of the tree. So thank you. But it worked.
Well, in the old days, we did take a year to get rid of a lot of our stuff because we were patient. So I don't see any others' hands, so here I go. Because I've been listening to all of this, and my problem has not shown up. As I drive on Wednesday mornings out, in the beginning of the year, if the if the lids are all open and the boxes are all over the top of the bins. Well, that's one thing, because we didn't really realize that we had to close the lids. But in December, as you're driving along and you see that happening, you think, are these new people who have moved in, or there's still people out there that don't realize what the rules are? I don't like to be asked or told to go to the website, because maneuvering through a website when you don't know the company very well, any website, even those that say it's a simple website, you can get lost in it and you can't find that. The first time I had to call, I got a human being. But the second time I called, I could not find a number to call anywhere. So I don't know what happened. So I did talk to one of your AI bots, whoever that was, the chat line.
The virtual assistant.
Right. And so so what I'm trying to say is, so my problem was with the coupons. The first time, I asked what was wrong, because there was nothing contaminated, nothing. But finally they figured out that it was an extra bag. And I said, yeah, we had an extra bag with a coupon on it. Well, apparently my son put the coupon on the other side, and so the driver couldn't see it. And so I got charged $10, something like that. And I just let it go, because, all these years in the past, we put the tape on the other side, where you usually put it from the sidewalk, not on and we've never gotten charged for the 40 years that I've lived here. Okay, then the second time it happened, there was a video. And so I'm looking at the video, and the other person is looking. That couldn't be the second time. That must have been the first time. But we were looking at the video, and there was nothing contaminated going in. And so it was the second bag. Okay, so the second time, when I'm talking to the chat person, we finally figured out that we did have, this time we put the coupon on the street side so they could see it, but we still got charged. And then the AI person said, okay, it's all resolved now. We're taking off we're not going to charge you for that, we're going to take it off. And I thought, that's one thing about doing chat. I wanted to continue this conversation because, yes, it got resolved for me, but how many people in our city are using those coupons and still getting charged for it and not calling in? Because I got it twice.
We don't have an answer. We've talked about this in the office. It's an old idea, and we need a new strategy. You know, taping a coupon to a bag is like, so many things could happen. You know, the tape could fall off, the little piece of paper could fly away. I think we need a better way to provide the service to the city. And I have to tell you, it's an unusual service. I don't know of too many other cities that do this. So historically, I don't exactly know why Mountlake Terrace came up with it, but but we would like to come back to you with a way we could think about simplifying it. So
Because in the old days, once a year, it was the put out anything you want to and we'll pick it up. And how much did it cost us, Laura?
I don't remember, it was built into our contract, but it was lovely.
Yes. And then, when we renegotiated the contract with Waste Management, they took away that once-a-year thing, but they gave us 4 coupons. And the coupons, we always taped it on there because there's no other way to do it.
I got a good way.
How did you tape it?
I taped it once, but it kept coming off. So the secret is stapling it. So I staple the coupon 2 to 3 staples.
Okay.
Yeah, and then it doesn't go away. And then kids going to school in the morning, they can't really rip it off much.
Well, we had those for years, and I've never had a problem till this year. So I got caught twice on that, and each time I had a coupon.
I just don't think it's a good long-term reliable approach. So I think in 2025, we'll have to just do our best.
Maybe a sticker. The coupon is a sticker, but then again, you can't recycle it.
Well, the sticker could fall off too, and sometimes the driver doesn't see it. And here again, we do use cameras to increase our efficiencies and to capture these kind of things.
We could not see the coupon.
But the camera doesn't know a coupon, it only knows an extra bag.
Because the bin was right in front, and then the other, because I looked at that video and that photograph, and I'm going, I know we put the coupon on.
So I think in 2026, we'll put our heads together and
Yes.
perhaps we'll come up with a better mousetrap.
Because I just figure if it happened to me, I don't know how many others it happened to.
Yeah, we're looking into that. We're
Okay.
thinking of a way to look at all the customers and see on average how many bags they have. And I mean, maybe we could do it seasonally or something. I don't know. We're brainstorming
All
something.
right. And then I know that the contamination, I lifted my lid one time with my yard waste, I have it outside, and I lifted to put something in, and I don't know who it was, neighbor, whoever's walking their dogs by, but they dumped their stuff in there. Not the dogs' things, but other garbage in my yard recycle. And I thought, okay, that makes more work for me. And then the last thing is, a lot of people ask, do you keep the top on the plastic bottles? Because I heard that pops.
So the lid debacle is one that we get often. It's a very frequent question. If it's a plastic bottle like that, the cap can stay on and that bottle will be recycled as one plastic object.
Okay.
But if you have something like a glass jam jar with a metal lid, that's one that you're going to want to separate, put the jar in the recycling, and put the lid in the garbage. But for plastic water bottles, which are the most common, the lid can stay on as long as it's on there tightly. It's not going to fall off.
Okay, good, thank you. All right, so I think all the questions were answered, because we were all very, very frustrated. Well, we're glad we have garbage service, but, and we were spoiled in the past. I know that Mountlake Terrace was spoiled, but change is hard for everybody, and the prices, like I remember paying $38, and I'm paying almost $100. So 90, what was 80? Well, mine is in the 90s. So anyway. Okay. Yeah, double of everybody. Okay, so if anyone else, we've had a lot of questions, and did I miss something? All right. Thank you so much for coming and braving all of this.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Mayor. Now that we've gotten through item number 1, can I suggest a break before we move on to the next item?
Okay, 5 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, 5 minutes. We'll be back in 5 minutes. Okay, we're back in session. And now the next item on our agenda is the presentation on the Recreation Pavilion Options Update. I only see Jeff Knighton here, not Jeff Betts.
Good evening,
Oh,
Mayor.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, I'm on Zoom right here. Hopefully you
didn't
can hear
even
me
look up.
okay. Can everybody hear me? Just want to make sure because I was on a mic problem issue.
We can hear you.
earlier.
Yeah, we can hear you fine, Jeff.
Okay, great. Switch this up. Okay, you probably still see the split screen, don't you? Do you not see the presentation, or does it show the slides?
We can
There's
see
slides
the,
on there too.
yeah, we can see the slides, but they're, it's not in presentation mode. We can see your notes too.
Yeah, I got. No, yeah, those aren't mine. Hang on a second here. I have 2 monitors, so it goes to the other monitor.
Yeah. That's fine. We can see it.
Okay. Okay, got it. Okay, well, good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and council members. I'm Jeff Betts, Recreation Parks Director for the city. So tonight we'll be giving the second presentation on the Recreation Pavilion. And the purpose is really just to give additional background information on the Recreation Pavilion, which, as you know, is 56 years old and in need of a replacement. Tonight, we're just going to talk about some of the information related to the pavilion, as well as some comparables around Western Washington. So the agenda, we're going to talk a little bit about the background, some cost comparisons, different funding options, the request of the council, and questions and discussion. So this is a similar history I talked about before, but just going over some background again. The pavilion was originally approved with the voter approved bond in 1964 for construction of $512,000. And it was constructed in 1968, serves about 400,000 users annually. And the Civic Facilities Advisory Task Force was appointed prior to 2009 and then was made a recommendation to replace the building in early 2009. And then jumping ahead to this last summer on August 22nd, 2024, the City Council reviewed the options related to the pavilion, and that was in comparing a remodel versus a new facility. And Council expressed interest in replacing the facility instead of that remodel. So also some background on the task force recommendations originally. It did recommend a new structure as well, due to being really difficult, if not possible, to remodel due to the age and the building's lack of flexibility. Also, the location was recommended to be adjacent to the recreation pavilion, and there's conceptual option number 1 on the right-hand side of the screen here. That is where the Sonics basketball court is located right now. The site is currently owned by the city. There's plentiful parking, and there is a draw for the town center, was one of the recommendations. And then additionally, it would be so we could maintain our customer base and there'd be no closure necessary. So additionally, Miller Hull was a consultant, and they did a space analysis of the building. The pavilion is 33,000 square feet existing, and about 74,000 square feet was the recommended square footage of a new facility. They also recommended that we undertake a process to develop a business plan, and that 2009 cost estimate of the facility was $38 million. Was also a recommendation to pursue a traditional property tax levy rather than a park district. And that way the city would be able to maintain oversight and ownership. So the exercise we did since we last met was to take a look at other facilities and some cost comparisons. Now, this is some data that we received from ARC, which is the consultant we used for City Hall when we constructed a couple years ago. And so this comparison, you can see where I drew the recreation pavilion, just to orient you in the Puget Sound area. You can see the South Whidbey Aquatic Center to the north, and then to the west, the Shore Aquatic Center. And then further south, you have the rest of the buildings, the Rainier Beach Community Aquatic Center, Furcrest Community Center and bathhouse/pool, the Eastside Tacoma Community Aquatic Center. And then the 3 that have not been built, so all the gold ones have been built, and then the 3 in blue are in the planning phase still. There's Renton, Covington, as well as Penn Met Aquatic Center in Gig Harbor. So the first facility that we took a look at, that we got data from ARC on and looked at some additional information on their website, was the Williams Shore Pool District in Port Angeles. It's called the Shore Aquatic Center. And it actually was an existing building that they remodeled, but then they added on to as well. And I did speak to the director of this facility, and they had a desirable location and a desirable kind of a build that they liked. So they did keep some of it. So they remodeled 16,900 square feet, and they added on almost 14,000 square feet to that building. And it cost $15.5 million in 2018. But as you can see, we're going to show you what that cost is when they built, and then what inflation added to that by our just a random target that I put in here of 2027. But that inflation would have increased by 2027 to $29 million. So that cost per square foot is $882 in 2027 as well. Okay, and then the South Whidbey Aquatic Center, the organization of South Whidbey Parks and Recreation District, is a 1-level, 23,700 square foot building. And it's right now in the construction documentation phase. I actually looked up recently, and they're getting ready to go to bid here in the next couple of months. They're doing construction will be this summer in 25. So that building cost, they estimated it to be almost $23 million in 25, which that would, in our case, our hypothetical case, it would escalate to $25 million by 2027. And that cost per square foot is $861. So the Rainier Beach Community Center was built in 2013 for $16.5 million. It's 1 level, 48,000 square feet. And it's very similar, I think, to a size that was recommended at one time for our facility, like a 50,000 square foot-ish building, not the 70-something thousand we talked about in 2009. But that same building would have cost almost $36 million by 2027. And the cost per square foot was a little bit less, though, $657 by 2027. The Furcrest Community Center, and it's a little different as a combination. It's a community center and bathhouse/pool. It's 1 level, has a bathhouse of 4,800 square feet, but also has an almost 15,000 square foot community center. and its building cost was $12.6 million in 2020, which would escalate to $20.4 by 27. And the cost per square foot is about $788 per square foot. Then the east side, Tacoma Community and Aquatic Center, Metro Parks Tacoma, is a 2-level, 55,000 square foot building that was constructed in 2018 for $26.5 million, which would be almost $50 million by 2027. And its cost per square foot was about almost $800. Then we're moving on to Covington has not been built. It's in the planning phases. Their current pool is a Ford Thrust pool that was given to them by King County in 1977. Or I should say that was built in 1977. They've done a couple of feasibility plans, one in 2021 and one in 2023. And the 2023 plan did move their pool to their town center. Currently, they're trying to secure funding. As you can see, the building's large, 80,700 square feet, includes building costs of almost a little shy of $80 million by 2027. And the cost per square foot is $920, $921. The Renton HMAC Aquatic Center study for Renton had a couple of aspects involved in it. It's one level, 14,000 square foot, but it's kind of a dual purpose. The assessment took a look at what it would cost to not only renovate their existing outdoor pool, but to add an indoor space as well, indoor aquatic center to that. So they estimated that would be $12.35 million. In 2023, they estimated that, which would escalate to $15 million by 2027. And then the final center study is the Penn Met, which is in Gig Harbor, so Peninsula Metropolitan Parks District. And that feasibility came out in 2024. It's for a pool and senior center combination. It's one level, 36,800 square feet. And that building cost for 25 for construction would be almost $35 million, which escalates by a few million by the time we roll 27 around. It's about $929 a square foot. So when we pull these different costs together and take a median cost, a 2027 median cost, all those different facilities combined aren't necessarily all apples to apples, since some include senior, some have an outdoor pool combo, but that building cost median is about almost $40 million. And the building cost per square foot is about $880 a square foot. One of the things that we spoke about to a couple different consultants was the average site cost was like $3.3 million, but these are only hard costs. And they said that we really need to assume an additional 40% on top of these costs for any soft costs related. So we're talking design, architectural work, construction management, construction assistance, all the different hard costs related to aside from construction itself. Now, this is a slide we had in the last one, but it's basically all the funding options that are possible with anything that you want to consider for this type of facility. Some are more likely than others, obviously, but and more used than others. There's the property tax, sales tax, Metropolitan Parks District, a bond, partnerships, donations, grants, and other special districts. And maybe a combination of some of these things could be effective as well, but just to outline them all. So to focus in on a property tax levy, just to give you a couple of different examples. On the right, we showed you some of these different agencies that have levies for their aquatics facilities. There's a couple different examples, but the facts about property tax increases is that more than 1% annually must be approved by voters of 50+1. As we know, levies can be for a permanent or fixed period of time. They can fund capital operations or maintenance costs. Can also be used to purchase bonds or pay for loans. Now, we did a conceptual idea of what Mountlake Terrace would look like. This is through 2023's assessed value. That's what this number is right here. Combined assessed value for Mountlake Terrace was a little under $5.3 billion, total assessed value of all property. So just as a hypothetical, we used a bonded amount. If we bonded for this project of $50 million, that annual debt service would be $3.75 million per year. That's based on the data that's shown here of a levy rate would be 0.71. The cost for a typical Mountlake Terrace home is $619,500 from that 2023 data as well. And so that would be $440 a year per resident, or per household, I should say, or $37 almost per month. Now that's just a property tax levy with just Mountlake Terrace residents. So one of the other alternatives that's used for pools and for constructing major facilities like this is a Metropolitan Park District, which is a special district. It's a junior taxing district, and you can levy up to 75 cents per thousand. Boundaries can also exceed one jurisdiction, so you can incorporate multiple jurisdictions. It can cross county lines. It doesn't have to be in one county. And it can fund both capital and operations for that district. And on the right are some examples on this slide also of some Metropolitan Park districts. And the oldest one is Metro Parks Tacoma. So we did throw in some additional charts here to show what some of those hypothetical partnerships would look like. If you had an Edmonds Mountlake Terrace shoreline combination, this shows their assessed value from 2023 and the total assessed value. Then it shows what that $50 million bond would look like and how that would affect each typical Mountlake Terrace home from 2023. Excuse me. So that's about a $59.07 annual property tax fee, and then that would be a little less than $5 a month. If you add more cities, say you added, for hypothetical, you added Lake Forest Park and Briar to this list, it does go down a little bit. It goes down annually by about $10 a year, and then it goes down about, 79 cents, it looks like, per month. So it'd be $4.13 a month for that fee for a more regional facility. And kind of the caveat with that, though, too, is if you're looking to service more communities, you're probably looking at a larger, even larger regional facility than if you were just funding it with this one community. So this is just a chart real quick showing you what that comparison looks like. So it does escalate pretty quickly when you have just Mountlake Terrace taxpayers paying for it, the annual cost. And it goes down pretty dramatically when you get down to 3 cities, but then it's very, very slight drop when you add those 2 other cities next to us. So next steps was really just tonight to provide some additional information on financing, what that would look like on a typical homeowner. And we're here to hopefully answer any questions you have or get any more detailed feedback that you would like to see us bring to council next time.
Thank you. Do we have any questions, comments? Councilmember Woodard?
Thank you, Mayor. First, thank you for this report. Very detailed, very thorough. Appreciate that. And so I'm going to ask my question cautiously because I don't want to derail whatever momentum you have, or if you're already planning, then I want to put some wind behind those sails, which, as I'm looking at these numbers, I say to myself, well, I would love to have examples of what partnerships look like. They don't even have to be in the state of Washington, just so we have some examples to start thinking in that direction. And that's just being realistic. I'm not even sure how these cities are doing this. I really want to talk to some people on those councils now. But nonetheless, that would be my hope. And if that's not something you're already doing, but you're doing something comparable, then I would say do that, because I definitely don't want to, I want information that's going to be helpful. But to me, it's like that will be helpful to see what a partnership looks like.
Councilmember Payne Donovan?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I think in the same sort of vein as Councilmember Woodard, I'm curious to know what Metropolitan Parks District council or sort of leadership board looks like, and how that would impact our Parks and Rec department. That would be a helpful point of comparison as well for me.
Councilmember Murray?
Thank you, Mayor. I guess one of the things I'm really curious about is what our community thinks. I mean, I know we talked as a council about kind of some of our perspectives around, the idea of, us doing this alone versus us potentially looking at partnerships, and there were different perspectives represented, and appreciate that the feedback, Jeff, and the presentation today goes over kind of what some of those different decisions might potentially look like and the impact on residents. And I think it would be really helpful to understand, at least in some way, shape, or form, what they think about some of those things. So I would hope that at some point in these conversations as we move forward, there'd be an opportunity to better understand their perspectives here, because I do think that makes a big difference in at least from my perspective, and how we proceed. There is real cost differences, and there is also real differences in, what that looks like then, depending on the decision that's made. And I don't think we've had enough similar conversations with community members, at least during my time on council, for me to feel like I have a very, I think I know how some folks feel. I don't know that I feel like I have a good enough perspective at this point, how our community would respond to what's before us, to, I think, effectively be able to represent them the way that I would want to. So I guess that would be one of my questions. And then I guess maybe just a couple of background questions that maybe are more curiosity for me, but would be helpful from the task force recommendations. Just as we do get further in the process, I'd be curious, kind of with that 74,000 square feet, how they decided that was the right number. So again, I think thinking about, if we're building a facility that is primarily to support our community, that may look differently, to the city manager's point, than if we were looking at something that was going to be supporting more broadly, our neighbors. And so would love to understand just what their basis was as we look at those recommendations that came forward previously. And then I guess I would just love a reminder around zoning. I know we changed town center zoning, and I think that used to extend up 56th all the way to 220th. And given the timeline, I'm wondering if that was the case when this was made. Our town center zoning doesn't currently extend even to 228th, where our pavilion is located. So I guess just in terms of location and suitability, that would be something I would want to better understand what they were looking at when they ultimately made the recommendation that was that current site was the best site to move forward with. And I think that is it. But yeah, I appreciate the bringing this back and continuing to move it forward. Obviously we've been having conversations about this for a long time, and it's been a community priority for a long time. And so I really do appreciate the urgency and focus on giving us information that helps us to move the process forward. So thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it.
Councilmember Ryan?
Thank you, Mayor. I know we had some citizens come and talk to us about the pool, the rec center, and it was just, like 4 groups, couples. So having maybe some community feedback on the options here and what they'd like to do would be great. But I know one person mentioned that because Mountlake Terrace is not a high percentage usage at the pavilion, they wouldn't like to see the whole price of it go to just Mountlake Terrace and Mountlake Terrace citizens. So that's something to think about, and we could get more feedback on that with the public. The other thing is, then because of that, I'm looking at the Metropolitan Park District, and Shoreline, do they still have that forward thrust pool?
No.
They don't? Ah, boy, it's been a long time since I've been there. Anyway, So they don't have anything. Edmonds has the
Outdoor pool.
outdoor pool, and I don't think that is open anymore. Is it? It is? It's in summer only? In the winter?
No.
No. Yeah. Anyway, so I think with that, Briar doesn't have anything. I don't think Lake Forest Park really has anything either, do they? They got that, yeah, they got that Lake Washington. It's hard to heat that thing up, though. And then, so I'm thinking, you know, if they want a nice swimming pool and everybody's coming here, this would be a good thing to consider for our citizens and our community. And that's it. Thank you.
Anyone else? Mayor Pro Tem Wall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thanks for the presentation. I first of all want to echo what everybody else has said, and I specifically would like more information on the public-private partnerships and how the different options of what could be available or what could happen through that. And then I agree we need to get public involved. And so I'd love to see a full-on public campaign to gather information of what they want and what costs they're willing to bear. And, you know, do things like an open house and surveys and whatever else we do to collect the information to see what kind of direction our community wants to go. I'll leave it there for now because it's been a long night.
Councilmember Salmore?
I was just looking at some of the notes with Vic Sood, and I think even Judy Ryan was on the task force, if I remember right. And at that time, when we did have a task force, it was $39 million, and that was in 2009. So we may have overshot a little bit because we had a running track in there. We had a lot of things in there. The number one thing is to consider is even, do we have the money to even consider this at this time? If we went out to the voters, we'd have to, I don't know if it's still $30,000 to go out to vote. And then the Metropolitan District we've talked about before, but Edmonds is kind of hurting in cash. Briar is Briar, you know. And Linwood already has a pool. Lake Forest Park, we could talk to their manager. He's from Mountlake, Terrace, or their mayor. But I think we have to look at some more options and think about what we need to do here. It's nice to get our citizens involved, but if we already know we can't afford it, then there wouldn't be a need. But I'm trying to look at some of the different options that they said in that task force. I know, I want to say almost spent a year on looking at it. So maybe we start another task force and dig out the 2009 information that we had, but it's something that we may have to come to the conclusion that we may not have a pool in Mountlake Terrace. And I'm sorry to say that, but I think that we do owe it to our neighbors to look at some of our options.
Anyone else?
So we can, we'll put together a public campaign so we can talk to the community, both in person, online, about what their perspectives and what their preferences are to, you know, as mentioned, have a pool or see what happens. I mean, the building is rapidly making the decision for us. And I think everybody knows, you know, we've mentioned that before. It's difficult to find parts, those kind of things. But it is, you know, it is iconic, and it has been in Mountlake Terrace for a long time. I had, amazingly enough, a doctor's appointment this morning, and told the doctor what I did for a living, and he said, "Oh, my kids learned to swim at your pool." So, yeah, it's widely known around the region. So, but we will we'll do that and bring you back a plan and how to accomplish it.
Okay, well, you're right. It's making its decision for us if we don't do anything. Oh, Councilmember Woodard.
Thank you. I had the internet, so I was just looking up Renton, Covington, and it looks like PennMet is a commissioner-based group. Where I'm going with that is when I pull back to the PowerPoint, I missed that, usually the expression is apples to apples and all that. Among those three, Renton, Covington, or PennMet, are any of those more likely something we would build? I was just looking at square footage and didn't think that was a good measure. So, and where I'm going with this is we do have AWC coming up. I don't know how many of us are going, but I already recognize some of the Renton folks. I think I'm actually connected to some of them. And if that would be helpful, I obviously our own edification, but to bring something back, and then you all, I mean, I'd be happy to report back type of thing is where I'm going with this, if that makes sense to use that time to track some of these folks down. So again, I don't get it, but if we're over here oranges and they're concrete, then it doesn't make any sense. But if it's helpful, I wouldn't hesitate to track folks down. Just let me know.
Yeah, I think any additional data we can gather that might help us find a solution would be valuable.
Okay. So you'll get back to us.
Yeah, we will put together, I'm sure one of the first steps is trying to determine what type of building, because just asking somebody a broad question, you know, do you want a pool, while somewhat helpful, probably isn't the type of data that we need to gather. So we'll design that and figure out the best way to do it, come back and report back to council about that plan, and then make sure we engage the community to find out what their perspectives and preferences are.
All right.
One thing, sorry, Mayor,
Yes,
I just
go
wanted
ahead.
to point out one thing too, that the last presentation, I did bring a bunch of survey data. We have engaged the community quite a bit on the subject. I mean, further engagement is definitely necessary, but we did do the National Community Survey with a question directly related to this, as well as the Recreation Park Open Space Plan asked all respondents these questions, and we had over 1,000 responses that were in favor of replacing it. I have that data that I can resend that again if you'd like. There is also in that past presentation additional examples of partnerships and different things like that I presented last time. I didn't want to include everything and trying to consolidate a little bit, not make the presentation so long, but can definitely resend all that information too if it's helpful.
Councilmember Murray?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Jeff, for the follow-up. And I guess to go back to my question so that I'm a little bit more specific with what would be helpful for me. I don't, at least from my perspective and what I've heard from residents, I don't have any question that residents want us to find a solution that replaces the recreation pavilion. That for me is I've heard very few folks that have said anything other than this is an important feature of our community and we need to find a solution that continues to provide services, you know, and or expand services in our community related to recreation and the pool. So I guess that isn't what I need. I think what I don't have as good of a gauge on is how much folks are willing to pay, right, for those services and whether they're willing to, where they would make trade-offs, like are they willing to pay more for more, you know, kind of direct services. And then I think we get back into some of the conversations I've brought forward before around Mountlake Terrace residents receiving preference for services if we alone are paying for a new pavilion, right, or whatever we call it. On the other hand, you know, are they willing to trade and share more broadly? I mean, really, as we're already doing with the greater community around Mountlake Terrace in order to share costs if there were options to do that. So I think that's where I don't have a good gauge in how willing folks are to pay for what they want and how much they're willing to pay. So I think anything we can get in terms of feedback around where folks would prioritize, you know, cost savings versus more dedicated services or larger facilities versus a smaller facility, but that again is caters to our needs. That's really what I'm hoping to better understand.
Yeah. Do you want a pool? Yes. Do you want to pay $500 annually for a pool? Yeah, maybe not. Right.
Councilmember Salmore?
I was just looking at the report, and I don't know if Dale was on that committee at that time, but they all agreed that the Metropolitan Park was nice, but they wanted the services kept within the city, and they didn't want to to go abroad consisting of outside entities, but I think, and I like that too. I like keeping it in Mountlake Terrace. I like having our own employees, but I think when we're considering a pool, the city's not going to have any money to pay for it. So it's going to have to come from private or a metropolitan district. And I think, if I remember right, I haven't looked at metropolitan, it has to be a connecting city. And I can't remember how that works, but I think, Jeff, if we're looking at this, we'd have to look to see what monies would have to come from the cities and how much that would be. I mean, for our city, because I don't think we're going to have that in our future budget because we already took a look at our budget. So I think, Aaron, that's true. I know people want the pool, but I don't know how much people want to pay for it. And that's why I asked about going out for a vote. If we went out for a vote, and this was during the time we were trying to get a city hall too. And so we were looking at all sorts of options, and the committee was wonderful. And they wanted to do as much as they could for our city. But I think it's going to have to be something that is paid for either through taxes, sales tax, or that metropolitan park, and that would be looking at another city. And I don't know if those other cities actually contribute. So Jeff, does the metropolitan parks, would that pay for the whole thing? And it would still be a cost to the citizens. So that's something we need to know, the metropolitan parks, who we could partner with, how much it would cost, how much it would cost the citizens. And then if we go out to the vote that you explained earlier, you already showed us how much that would cost. And what about a scaled down version? Could we go for something, just a pool? I mean, what would be the cheapest we could build a pool for? I mean, you don't have to answer that now, but you probably already looked at it because I saw you shaking your head, but I was just curious.
I'm just looking at my other monitor, sorry. No, the actual cost of a pool is very much, it's a very good question. And that's why we did engage with 2 consultants to come up with the numbers I just showed you of what they're doing now. But I think we need to know what we need and want as a community, right? We need to know what the needs are here and then what that feasibility of it is. And so I think that's engaging with the consultant and the community to help with that process. It's kind of a large process to figure that piece out. The $50 million is very conceptual, throwing a number out there, right? I have no idea what it would cost, but just based off of what those examples were, it's around that dollar amount. So if it was a Metropolitan Park District with just Mountlake Terrace, then it is that, quite a bit more expensive, that $36.68 a month. And it's a 60+1 vote. It's not a 50+1. So it's harder to get approved, and it's permanent. So it's not a 30-year bond or something of that nature. This is a permanent, which makes it harder to get passed to. Not everybody wants to pass that permanent taxation or the ability to permanently tax that. So the pluses of the Metropolitan Park District is that if you add other cities to it, it reduces the cost. You can identify the properties, exactly what the park district would do, and you would have to do that for the ballot. If it was just a pool, a regional pool, then that's what they would do, is just run a pool. And the neighboring cities around us are all looking for a pool. They're actively working on it. Shoreline is probably the furthest along. They've all taken their own studies and participated in various studies. So it's people are clamoring for this, and definitely our neighbors are, I should say. And the information we received inside Mountlake Terrace, it's very much what you said, Councilmember Murray, is everybody's told us how much they want to keep the pavilion or they want a new pavilion. But it costs money, right? So that if you do partner with those other cities, though, $4 to $5 a month is much more desirable than that $37 a month.
And we've looked at buildings in Mountlake Terrace or surrounding areas that could be converted into a pool. The first thing that came to my mind is the gymnastics, but, I can't think of any other site in Mountlake Terrace except maybe down in the district off of like 216th or something. There might be something in there, but I can't think of anything. Because you brought that up, I thought that was an interesting idea as well.
Yeah, the problem is that property acquisition. This property is so expensive. So that's why we're trying to think of ways to locate it on Mountlake Terrace property. You Shoreline purchased property in their town center for, I think, like $17 million or something of that nature. So it's just the property alone is very, very expensive.
What is it, have you, with the research, looking into somebody, would they come in from a private? Is there much money in pools like YMCA or coming in to help convert something?
No, YMCA builds in Snohomish County pretty much the same pool. That's a blueprint they utilize throughout. That's very much a smaller pool. It's not a regional size. If you've been to the one up the street in Shoreline, the Dale Turner Y, it's very similar to some of the others. The one that's kind of the outlier is the Ever one. That one is very kind of a larger building, a newer one. But anything is possible with partnerships. It's just partnerships take a lot more time. And especially if you have a developer partner, trying to bring a developer in and partnership on a piece of property, that it takes a lot of time. And not sure how much time the Pavilion has at times, right? Just with the development and how much money we're spending on costs is all.
Did you have something, Mayor Protem?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm interested in getting, as you point out, I mean, I think one is what amenities do we want included? Two is how much are we willing to pay? And three is kind of government or governance options or who's in control. So you've got us, just Mountlake Terrace, and then we control everything. Metropolitan Parks District is elected officials for the Parks District for whatever region. And we can't assure that the location of the pavilion will remain in Mountlake Terrace. So while on the one hand, we could reduce the costs, but on the other hand, we lose control and we may or may not have a facility in our city. So I'm interested in getting feedback about that. Public-private partnerships, what are the pluses and minuses of that? I mean, as Jeff points out, and part of it is definitely takes a little more time and more involved, but what are the potential cost opportunities there? If we partnered with the YMCA, as has been pointed out, they take on the costs, but the operational fees are a little higher than we charge. And so that's potentially a concern. So getting that kind of feedback, I think, is important of understanding where our residents, what our residents want on what's included, how much they're willing to pay, and how are we going to do it.
Councilmember Seymour?
After you said that, Councilman Wall, it dawned on me too, and Jeff, you were saying the pool may give out. What's the cost to take that down? I mean, just if it goes out, we build a pool outside the city, I mean, it could be a ton of money to take down that pavilion and flatten out that land. So there's all the unintended consequences that go along with different things that we're looking at.
Go ahead.
Thank you. And just to follow up, when we talk about time, okay, so we may be limited with the amount of time the pool has, but how many no votes and how many years of no votes could we end up with no pool? So the public-private partnership timing may take a lot of time and energy, but on the other hand, we may have a lot of time before we're able to get yes votes to pass whatever we want. So that's another option to consider.
Councilmember Woodard?
Thank you, Mayor. I was just going to put a bow on this and say I will not be looking up these folks because I did track down Covington's feasibility study, 355 pages. Thankfully, on 16, they tell you straight up that they're looking to do a metropolitan park district. And they're, I would argue, from what we've heard, closer to what we're trying to do because Renton is 14,000 square feet. So I imagine their conversation wouldn't really inform ours. So just putting it out there that we're interesting position here.
In the governance discussion, Mayor Pro Tem, just touch base on that, is that council could serve as elected representatives on that Metropolitan Park District. It doesn't have to be elected by the public outside of being a council member. So you could have, you know, a few council members from each city, which would make up that board of the Metropolitan Park District.
Okay. Anyone else? So we're going to just continue to, we'll just continue. All right, thank you. Sooner or later, we'll get a new pool. I don't know when, but we'll get one. Okay. So now we're going to move on to, we are going to move on, right? Okay, we're going to move on to the license agreement with the Snohomish County for a ballot box.
And that's me again, Mayor Pro Tem, council members. Tonight, as mentioned, this is an agreement between the city and Snohomish County elections. So in 2017 Snohomish County elections, staff reached out to city staff to see if there was a test location available on city property. And this was before the civic, I should say before City Hall was constructed at the civic campus. But in working with those officials, we did settle on a site in Civic Campus, the present site of the ballot box. And in 2018, the first agreement was approved by council that authorized the placement of that ballot box. In this first year, it collected 5,117 ballots. And after a lot of positive feedback from the community, the city entered into that 5-year agreement that expired on December 31st, 2024. So this just expired about 9 days ago. So in 2019, the legislature did create a requirement of a minimum of 1 ballot drop box in each city, town, and census designated place in the county with the post office. So that's in accordance with RCW 29A40-170. So that was one impetus, obviously, to continue this moving forward was that updated law code change. So this agreement does renew the previous arrangement for another 5 years, and it's in its current location, so would not change the location. And I wanted to give you a quick summary of the ballots counted and collected at the Civic Campus location. So in the February 13th special election, there were 2,698 ballots collected. The March 12th presidential primary, I should say, there was 2,799. The August 6th primary, we had 3,729. The November 5th general, we had 8,403 ballots. And then, so the total for 2024 was 17,629 ballots collected at the Civic Campus ballot box. So very, very much used by the community. It went from 5,117 in its first year to 17,629. So next part of this would be just the staff recommendation that staff recommends City Council authorize the city manager to enter into a licensing agreement with Snohomish County for the ballot drop box locations. But this would be done or could be done as part of the consent calendar and not until February 6th. So no action tonight, but just review.
Does everyone agree to that? Okay. It'll be on the consent calendar next month. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm glad it's being used. All right, so next is the review of the draft 2025 to 2031 Stormwater Comprehensive Plan. Update with rates with our program manager, Stormwater Program Manager, Laura Reed. Is this going to be your last meeting? No, not yet. Okay.
Okay,
Great. Thank you very much, Mayor Pro Tem, council members. I am quite delighted to be here to talk to you about our 2024 Stormwater Comprehensive Plan Update and Rate Study. We've been working on this for about a year, and I would love to show you what we've done and get your feedback. To start off, I just want to touch on the principles that were used to guide the plan. Essentially, those are environmental stewardship, which is protecting the environment through sustainable practices; accessibility, which is lowering barriers to participation for stormwater education, outreach, and involvement; equity, addressing inequity when planning and implementing programs and projects; efficiency, effectiveness, which is maximizing benefit while minimizing cost; and adaptability/resilience, which is planning for the anticipated future impacts of climate change. For some reason, the graphic sort of bled over into this text here. I don't know why it does that on this one, but anyway, when we think about 2045, there are a few things that come to mind for the stormwater program. The first one is that with increased population, you get increased risk of pollution. Just having more cars on the street does that, for example. The other thing is that with more growth, we have more stormwater and water quality facilities. These require more time to inspect and, if they're public, to maintain. The third thing is that small developments, those ones that are on a one parcel basis, are frequently not big enough to trigger flow control or water quality treatment. Now, that's fine if you just have a few of these, but if you have a lot, you get the death of 1,000 cuts scenario, where you don't get the kind of growth that you would like to see, and you don't get the environment protected in the way it needs to be. And then, of course, climate change, which brings a couple of unfortunate things like more flooding and also hotter summers. The new items that I want to just touch on for the Stormwater Comp Plan, which are different than what happened in 2018, is we have a new ecology permit for 2024 through 2029, has new requirements. We're looking at new climate change resilience. We have assembled a prioritized list of fish passage barriers. I'd like to say that the city is not at this time required to fix fish passage barriers, but I think it's a good idea for us to get ahead of the curve and be ready in case that happens in the future. And then also the consideration of regional stormwater facilities, which I'll go through. So what does the new ecology permit require? Essentially, it's tree canopy goals, policies, and documentation, a lot of which we'll take care of as part of the urban forest management plan, which is ongoing right now. Reducing runoff from forever chemicals such as PCBs and PFAS, which is typically found in firefighting foam. This is a lot about to reduce PCBs. You're talking about reducing the washing of buildings that were built between 1950 and 1980. There's a new stormwater technical manual for construction and new best management practices. We have water quality treatment retrofits for existing developments now required. And smaller road projects are also going to trigger water quality treatment because of the chemicals found in tire dust. And the last thing is just additional documentation for things we're already doing, such as street sweeping and mapping our drainage basins and outfalls. Another new element to the permit is more consideration for overburdened communities, which each community gets to define what they think that is. In Mountlake Terrace, it seems clear that people who live within a quarter mile of Highway 99 or I-5 are disproportionately affected by air pollution and noise, and so that is considered to be our overburdened community. For these locations, we need to provide more opportunities for public involvement and participation. That might show up in the form of additional outreach, for example, for the tree survey, volunteers went to areas, houses in this area to let people know that this is something that they could participate in. And then also to demonstrate how storm capital improvement projects provide benefit to people living in these areas, as well as businesses. Okay, so you hear a lot about hot summers, urban heat islands. What does that actually look like on the ground? This is a USGS satellite data map of Mountlake Terrace on one particular day, one particular time, and you can see that there are certain parts of the city that are a lot hotter than others. And those parts of the city that on this particular day were hotter than 94 degrees, which I think everybody would find very uncomfortable. So what are some things that can be done about that? For one thing, we can plant more trees because trees cool down the neighborhoods. They protect us from some of this heat island effect. And the other classic thing that you get with climate change is more serious, high-intensity storms. These storms overwhelm our systems and produce a lot more flooding. This picture here shows the area where we have the most flooding in the city, which is 216th and 68th behind Primera. So what can be done to mitigate that? Well, directly upstream of this, we now have this large piece of property that was donated to the city. We could use it to passively store more water in the wetland, and we could also plant a lot of trees there in order to try to soak up more of the flow that's coming through. Regional stormwater facilities have distinct pros and cons. I'll just cover each. Buying into an existing system is typically cheaper than building your own system on a new development. So it could provide an incentive for growth in the town center. They can also capture flow from development too small to trigger controls, as I was talking about earlier. And for big storms, you get perhaps more benefit from these large systems because they have more storage. Smaller systems would tend to go into bypass mode more frequently. On the con side, they're very expensive, millions of dollars of expensive, and that shifts the costs from individual developers to residents. And also, so out of this, we may be able to reclaim some costs from future development as things connect, but there's still the upfront cost. And then, of course, they require more city resources to inspect and maintain them. This is an example of our existing stormwater regional facility, which is located in the library parking lot. It services an area of the town center, which is 11 acres, which sounds like a lot, but it's actually pretty small, and there's not too many things that can connect to it. So to encourage growth in the town center, it's worth considering regional facilities. I'll go through these capital projects, but I just wanted to show some of their distribution around the city. We have a couple in Hall Creek, Main Street, Phase 2, which you're very familiar with, another project which is up in the northeast corner, and then this one where it shows some pipe repair projects. That's just an example. Those projects are scattered throughout the city. I've talked a lot about the 70th Water Quality Project. I just think that I want to touch on the fact that this is a good example of how we can get grant funding to do projects in the city and not put the full burden on our residents. With regard to the aging storm infrastructure, it's a process. We identify them through CCTV work, design them, and then develop a bid package that goes out for contracting to work. In order for this to become a conveyor belt, it needs to be, all these different phases need to be happening at once. We need to be identifying, designing, putting things out to bid so that we can get one bid package out designed and one bid package constructed per year. And that can be a packet of different projects around the city. You're very familiar with Main Street Phase 2. The stormwater contribution to that would be to replace broken pipes, infiltrate more, and put in bioswales wherever possible along 56th. The Hall Creek Sheet Pile Dam removal is a way to remove a fish barrier and to mitigate some of the flooding on 216th. This project was installed in the 80s. Its job was to keep sediment from getting up in Lake Ballinger. It was extremely effective at doing that, so effective that it's caused a backwater effect that floods us out on the regular. Wildermere Pond is another 80s sediment pond that has been completely filled up. It shouldn't look like it does with a little, incised channel going through it. That's because it's filled up with, at least a foot of sediment. This is an opportunity to retrofit the pond to provide more water quality benefit, and then also could be combined with upgrading our sewer lift station, which is also right on site there. This is a project that I feel pretty confident that a water quality grant could be applied for successfully. This is from the budget, which you've all recently spent quite a lot of time on, the financial implications of these projects. I would like to mention that for the sheet pile dam removal and the Wildermere Pond retrofit, what has been planned for is the match. These projects are so expensive that we would not do them unless we got a match, unless we got a grant, which we would pay the match for. For the benefit of any residents who are watching this presentation, I just wanted to go over what's involved in revenue requirements. I know that this is familiar to you, but utility rates are set to recover the annual cost of providing services. They include things like our reserves, our operating costs, and our capital costs. For the financial forecast that was done as part of the rate study by FCS Group for the stormwater program, it was based on budgets, reserve targets, how much we think the population is going to grow, inflation, debt service, and our capital plan. And this is a breakdown of the operating expenses as an example from the 2025 budget. As I talked about before, the payment for the capital improvement projects is a combination of money from the Stormwater Fund plus grants. The dark orange is grants that I think are secured or very likely. The yellow is less likely, but we have time to apply for these grants, and we have time to kind of figure out whether these are going to be viable in the coming years. So for the capital improvement plan that is proposed in this plan, the fortunate thing is that the Stormwater Fund is in good enough shape that we don't need to raise rates until 2027. And at that point, we start raising them 1.5%, 2027, 2028, 2029, 2030. This will allow us to accomplish what is in the plan. And then lastly, I just had a couple things to touch on before I'd like to get your questions. I did get a couple comments from a resident about the plan. One question was about the Ballinger Park flooding, which you probably noticed the park is very flooded. That is unfortunately not something the city can fix because of the amount of hard surface that's upstream of the lake. However, I think when WashDOT puts in a new culvert under I-5, you're going to see that the lake level reduces and we maybe get more use out of the park. The other question was if this resident lives downstream of the sheet pile dam and they were concerned about whether taking out the dam would increase flooding on their property. I can definitively tell you that we have studied this and the answer is no, it would not increase flooding. That's why the 2023 flooding study was done, was to model what would happen to Hall Creek if we took out the dam, and other options as well, but the dam was the main one. So there's that. The cost of this stormwater plan was budgeted at $188,000, and it has been delivered at $148,000. So we're $40,000 under budget, which I'm happy about. And the ask for tonight is, I'd love to hear your questions, if you could review the plan, and then we'll need, at the next meeting, which is February 6th, hold a public hearing and vote to approve or reject the plan. Any questions?
All right. Anyone?
Yeah.
Councilmember Ryan?
Speaking of that culvert under the freeway from Hall Creek, and then that's Hall Creek, right?
Mackler.
Mackler, then
yeah.
it turns into Mackler, okay.
Right.
Then is that the one that goes down through Lake Forest Park
Yes.
then? And that has the trouble on that winding area where it used to be a 7-Eleven, it's a pizza place now. There was a gas station and it took half of its property out many years ago.
Yes, yes.
Is that another creek that joins it, or is that just one creek, Mackler?
I'm slightly familiar with this situation. This is something that happened during some of the big storms in 2007 in Lake Forest Park.
Yeah, it had big flood
Yeah.
this recent year, or 2024. That one in Linwood too, when you get off the freeway.
Okay.
Scriber Lake?
Yeah, Scriber Lake, that. I was just kind of curious about.
I know that Lake Forest Park got quite a bit of money from the Corps of Engineers to separate Mackler Creek from Lion Creek.
That's it,
And,
okay.
yeah, and so, yeah, so that I think there's less risk for flooding now because
Okay.
of that, yeah.
Okay, just curious. I know you're in that field, so help me out. Thanks.
Sure.
Okay. Councilmember Payne Donovan?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think I'll just offer a couple comments and say, great job. The plan looks, to my lay person's eyes, looks like a great plan for the next, 2 decades. And also, having, had the pleasure of serving on or currently serving on the WIRA 8 board, and having served on the Ballinger Forum, to the degree it meets. I think some of the sort of tricky issues that you lay out here, and that we're trying to plan around, rely on a really regional approach. And so I think it's on us here on council and to the degree staff have ability to encourage our neighbors and have conversations about how these systems work and how we're planning together, whether we're talking folks upstream or downstream, or along our creeks. It's I view that as a really key component that's neither here nor there in terms of the plan, but I think is an important perspective to take here. So kudos on a great report, and yeah, I find this all exciting and interesting. And I'm also glad we're doing, planning for some green stormwater infrastructure here in the near future if we can get phase 2 of Main Street built. So, thanks, Laura.
Thank you.
Anyone else? So,
Thank you. I just want to say great report. I mean, I hope water and sewer took notes on how well this is working at the right cost. Good job. We appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
well, all I can say is that we're finally looking at stormwater to help the salmon, and, because you're saying that the hard surfaces on top, above, is causing a lot of this. And in the past, we just really didn't, maybe we knew better, but we just didn't care or look at what some of the buildings were doing, some of the constructions that we put in were doing. And And now that we're talking about uncovering some of these streams, it's just amazing to me how many streams were covered. And that's why the salmons can't go anywhere. And that's why we're running out of salmon. So I'm really proud that we're doing part one of what's needed to get all of this to happen again. So thank you.
Thank you.
You mentioned that, and where it used to be Olson's, now it's QFC, that's where we played growing up, and there was streams in there. We'd catch salmon and crawdad and snakes and everything. And I remember my brother coming home just extremely upset with all his friends, and they just bulldozed it all over. And I know there's certain culverts in there, but, and then we had Honda Hills, and, being able to reflect back on that and seeing what it's done to the salmon and different things, it was pretty devastating back then, but it still has had that rippling effect. So.
Well, they're going to uncover part of Swamp Creek right next to the light rail station in Linwood. They're going to uncover a creek where the Tally Tie area. So it's only going to be, anyways, I'm just so excited about that. Yeah, where the strip mall was on the corner. Yeah. All right, anyone else before? So we are, I was trying to find the things. Okay, so it's going to be in the, all right. No, I was going to just, so we're done with this one.
Okay.
Everyone's
Thank you very much.
said their 2 cents worth. Thank you. Yes. Okay. Next is the review of the January 16th meeting, which we canceled because we are all going to go to the Snohomish County cities and towns, and we're going to vote for, well, hopefully, yes, we are going to be voting. All right, and then the next one is council comments. Does anyone have any council comments? Can I mention the Thai place in this? The Gate and Thai is 1 year. It's their 1 year anniversary, and they have invited all of the people who work in this area, including, the Double D Meats and Snohomish Pie, and us, and everybody here at City Hall and the library and the police department, until the 17th, they will give you one meal for 25% off. So I had mine today. Okay, anyone else?
We do have, I just wanted to quickly mention, just so the public is aware, we do have the one meeting coming up on the 23rd. 23rd. But then we don't have another council meeting, and we don't have a formal council meeting again until February 6th. So there's going to be a few breaks in there. Just want to make sure people were aware.
All right. So then we have no more council comments, so we are now adjourned. Thank you very much. I don't need punch now.